Good morning everyone. This is video part 2 of the lesson, the cherry tree. That is the second lesson in your literature reader. So children, now we can see the story. I assume that you have already read the story. So in the first page itself, that is page number 13, you can see the author introducing the protagonist, that is the hero of the story, that is Rakesh, a 6-year-old boy. And the story begins like and the important symbol of the story is also introduced in the very first paragraph itself, when the author says like, one day when Rakesh was 6, he walked from the Missouri Bazaar eating cherries. So both the protagonist and the important symbol of the story, that is cherry, it is also introduced in the first line itself. And then he describes about that red cherries, which had come from Kashmir Valley. And then he is talking about the Himalayan foothills. So he describes about Missouri, where, and he uses here, we have already done imagery, like how to appreciate the story, figure of speech, or what you call, yes, literary devices. We had seen this imagery, the different kinds of imagery and everything. So here you can see visual imagery, when he says this soil was stony and the dry cold wind stunted the growth of most plants. Okay, and then in the next page number 14, he gives more details about Rakesh. Like he tells us about the character when he says like Rakesh lived with his grandfather on the outskirts of Missouri, just where the forest began. And then talking about grandfather, he tells he was a retired forest ranger, and then he had a little cottage outside the town. And then so after giving the details about the grandfather, and then Rakesh, he tells us about, the author tells us about now he is coming to the story. Now you can see that the importance of the seed is also revealed in this page itself, like when he says like, and you can see Rakesh, this boy is coming from school and he had 50 paisa for the bunch, and what he bought with that money, he bought some cherries. And then by the time he reached cottage, he was eating cherries throughout his way, and by the time he reached his cottage, only 3 cherries were left. And then you can see the relationship, the bond between grandfather and grandson. In a way you can see that he had spared that cherry for for his grandfather. He gives him one, and then other 2 he eats it. And after that he feels like, while he was eating that last cherry, he feels like he feels like it's a good idea to plant that seed. Okay, so now he is asking, so you can see like by the end of that page 14, you can see like he's asking grandfather whether it is good, like whether you consider this cherry seeds as lucky. And now here you can see the important statement that is made by grandfather when he says, nothing is lucky if you put it away. If you want luck, you must put it to some use. So according to him, he feel like there is nothing called lucky and unlucky. So whenever you use something, it turns out to be lucky. So he gets a feeling, he gets that advice like you need to use, put it for some use, use that seed, then it will turn out lucky to you. And then he asked, what can I do with the seed? And grandfather is giving that advice like plant it. Now after that you can see Rakesh getting a spade and began to dig up a flower bed. So here all the details of planting that seed is given there. So children, by the end of page number 14, you can see this Rakesh planting the cherry seed, and where you can see this grandfather, he has already got some interest in gardening also. When he gives him advice like don't plant it there, plant it somewhere, he gives some advice like that. And he also tells him like I have sown mustard in that bed. Okay, so he asks him, he tells him about some other place and ask him to plant it there. and then he's going to the corner of the garden where the earth was soft and yielding. So he goes to a fertile place of land and he digs it over there, and then he pressed the seed into the soil with his thumb and it went right in. So we also gets a feeling like, when he discusses like this, when the author is discussing like this, we also gets a feeling of planting that cherry seed. We feel like, we are seeing that how Rakesh is planting that. And then throughout the page number 15 you can see the bond between grandfather and Rakesh also. And you can see like after having his lunch, Rakesh goes out to play cricket with his friends, and then he forgets about the cherry seed also. Then there is nothing about cherry seed in that page. And where then you can see like, they are spending their time together, where his grandfather is telling stories to Rakesh, and Rakesh in turn in return he's reading the newspaper for him, for the grandfather also. And then you can see the passing of seasons, like spring season comes, and then so it is about that only. So we are not getting any idea about the cherry seed. No, just it is told like, it is planted by Rakesh in some fertile soil, and then after that nothing about, and he forgets about it also. And then nothing is told about the cherry seed in page number 15. And then when you go to page number 16, when you come to that page, you can see that one morning in the garden he bent to pick up what he thought was a small twig, and found to his surprise that it was well rooted. He stared at it for a moment, then ran to fetch grandfather, calling, "Dada, come and look, the cherry tree has come up." So in one day while he was taking a stroll in the garden, then he thought that it was a twig, but fortunately it was not a twig. It was, deeply rooted, and then only he comes to know that it is, the cherry tree. It has been rooted. I mean, whatever that he has planted it there, it had been rooted. And then grandfather also had forgotten about it, and then he asked him like, yes, the seed we planted last year. So he reminds him about that cherry tree, seed, and everything. And then they start nurturing it. Okay, once that cherry seed, it is the plant or the shoot is up, it has started coming above the ground, then they feel a kind of love towards that plant, and they start nurturing it, like, giving water. Then at that moment itself Rakesh is running indoors and he's coming back with a bucket of water. And then you can see grandfather giving him some tips also, like, not to drown it in water. Then he gives him some sprinkling of water, then they circle it with the pebbles. So and he tells like, for to give it some privacy and everything. And then after that, and they looked at the tree every morning, but it was not growing very fast, and so he stopped looking at it. And then after a week or two again, it was started, it was growing very slowly, like an inch and like that. And then after spring, then the next season also came, monsoon. And then so here every season it is also described by the author in a very beautiful way. And then the cherry tree, and in this monsoon season the cherry tree grew quickly in this season. That's what Ruskin Bond says. And then coming to page number 17, you can see like, some unexpected guest. That is the fourth point here in the slide. So there are some unexpected guests also, like a goat. First comes like when a goat entered the garden and ate all the leaves. Okay, so by that time it had grown up also, and then that goat left only the main stem, and the two thin branches remained. Okay, and then it made Rakesh very upset. Then grandfather is motivating him, telling like, cherry trees are very tough, they are very brave, they are courage enough, it will grow again. And then towards the end of the rainy season, first Rakesh thought that it had everything had gone, but towards the end of the rainy season, new leaves started appearing on that tree. And then the other unexpected guest, that is a woman, comes. Then and she cuts the while she was cutting the grass, she cuts this cherry tree also in two. Okay, so it was by accident. Then grandfather saw what had happened, and he went after this woman. He's going after this woman and he's scolding her. But whatever that damage that she had done, it could not be repaired, right? Now Rakesh thinks like, okay, after got this woman also, so now he thinks like it had died. I mean, it is nothing is going to be happen with this cherry tree. So grandfather is also like, he also thinks like the cherry tree had gone. But it is said in page number 17, towards the end of that page, it is said like, but the cherry tree had no intention of dying. So now the next season is starting, like, summer. By the time summer came round again, it had sent several new shoots with tender green leaves. So you can see like, the cherry tree is growing, and in the I mean, on the other side, you can see like, Rakesh is also becoming taller. He has also grown taller too. Rakesh had grown taller too. Now he is 8. That means 2 years. Okay, now the author is describing about that boy also. Black hair, black deep eyes, blackberry, that is grandfather called them. And now when you come to page number 18, there only he is describing about Rakesh's parents. So that monsoon, Rakesh went home to his village to help his father and mother with the planting and all these. So these things are described. So he was thinner but stronger when he came back to his grandfather's house at the end of rains to find that cherry tree had grown another foot. It was now up to his chest. So by this time, within these 2 years, he developed a great bonding with this cherry tree. So now you can see like, there are more leaves and the cherry tree has also grown up. So you can see, there are other visitors to this cherry tree. Like when it is said, Rakesh found sometime water the tree. He wanted it to know that he was there. And one day he describes on page number 18, it is said like, one day he found a bright green praying mantis perched on a branch, peering at him with bulging eyes. Rakesh let it remain there. It was the cherry tree's first visitor. So, okay, the first visitor. So he thought that this green praying mantis, when it came, like a grasshopper, he thought that as it was the first visitor, he remained it. I mean, he let it remain there. And then the next visitor was a hairy caterpillar. Then it was who started making a meal of the leaves. Okay, so by that time you can see like small holes in the leaves. And then Rakesh removed it quickly and dropped it on a heap of dry leaves. Come back when you are a butterfly, he said. Okay, now then after that you can see like the arrival of the next season, that is winter. It came early and the cherry tree bent low with the weight of snow. Okay, again the author is describing about that season and all. Like the roads are blocked because of the snow. It is in Masuri, right? So that you can imagine like the snowfall and everything. And for several days there was no newspaper, and this made grandfather quite grumpy. So the more description about that winter season is also given at that last paragraph of page number 18. And his stories began to have unhappy endings, like that, like your mood, it will be reflected in your stories also. So that only. So children, in this part you can see again the arrival of winter. So it is said like, winter came early, and then the cherry tree is bending low. Why? Because of this weight of the snow. And then how the environment is changing and everything is also described by the author Ruskin Bond. And then again this it is said like it is Rakesh's birthday in February. He was 9. So remember that when the story started, he was a 6-year-old boy. Okay, so when that cherry it was just a seed, he was only 6-year-old. So now he is 9. Okay, and the tree was 4, but almost as tall as Rakesh. One morning, so one morning, then again it is that, like, so survival of the cherry tree in winter, how it, despite this weight of the snow and everything, how it survived in winter is also described. And then and you can see, like, grandfather and this boy, how they enjoy the company of cherry tree, how they rest and rest in its shade, and everything is described by the author. And then he just said, like, Rakesh and grandfather on page number 19, it is written, like, the third paragraph. Rakesh and grandfather gazed at the tree as though it had performed a miracle. So that is very important. Miracle. So what is a miracle that is referred here? That is a pale pink blossom at the end of the branch. So grandfather happened to see a pale pink blossom at the end of the branch. That means it has started flowering. Okay, now the next step is fruits. Okay, and then the following year there were more blossoms, and suddenly the tree was taller than Rakesh also. Then even though it is now the author, in a very funny way, he describes it like, now the tree and suddenly the tree was taller than Rakesh, even though it was less than half his age. And then it was taller than grandfather, who was older than some of the oak trees. Okay, so now the tree, it grew enough as a tree, as a mature tree itself. Okay, like a fully grown tree. Now Rakesh had grown to like, he could run and jump and climb trees as well as most boys, and he read lot of books, although he still liked listening to grandfather's tales. Now it is written, like, the other visitors in the cherry tree, like bees, birds, tiny birds, they pecked at the blossoms and broke them off, but it continued blossoming. And then it is like visitors, bees and birds peck the blossoms and everything, and survival of the tree. And then again it is written, like, the attachment, how grandfather and this boy is attached with the tree. And then finally this cherry also will appear in the tree. This tree, like, this fruit will also appear. First, it was not as sweet as he thought. This Rakesh thought that this cherry tree, it will be very sweet, but it was not that much sweet. And then he spat it out. Okay, and then like and but you can see the patience also in his character. They waited for the next season, and you can see, like, but birds like the taste. Okay, and they continued eating it. So it was a feasting on the cherries. That is what the author writes, feasting on the cherries. Okay, and then but they enjoyed. Now it is written, like, attachment of grandfather and Rakesh with the tree. They enjoyed sitting in the shade and to enjoy the nature. And this cherry tree, they feel it's something special. And the last line, so it is, the story is about that only, like how they plant that seed, how they nurture it to a big tree, and what is the attachment, how they feel, the feeling towards the tree. That is the base of that story. And towards the end, he asked that question, like, what is special about this tree, he asks. So what's so special about this tree, why do we like it so much? Rakesh asked this question to grandfather, and he says the answer, like, we planted it ourselves, said grandfather, that's why it's special. Okay, so we like this cherry tree, why? Because we planted it, we nurtured it. Okay, that's why it is special. So that is a story. So children, in this PPT, I have covered the summary of the story. Okay, in the first video, it is already given you the information about the author and about the setting and about the character also. Okay, an introduction to the characters. Now there will be one more video where we will be discussing the characters in detail and about the theme of the story also. Thank you.